Hey, MAGA Christians, I need your help. I'm a bit rusty, so I'm here looking for the part in the Bible where it says defend nine sitting president even when he posts something clearly racist about the only black president we've ever had and his first lady during Black History Month.
Good evening, Patriots, and thank you, Sister Lysandra, for that honest question. This is something I've been hearing a lot lately, and I'm glad you asked, because it is in the Bible. The MAGA Bible. As it says in Lesser Corinthians 4:4, thou shalt never question our Orange King, especially during months of cultural celebration. For racism is in the eye of the beholder, and if thou sees it, thou hast sinned with liberal eyes.
Do you think it's closer to the part where he says that he could shoot somebody in broad daylight and not lose any votes?
No, sister, that is in the Old Testament. 1 King Donald, 2016.
Or do I have to jump ahead to the grab him by the puss portion?
No, sister, that's the Old Testament as well. Though the king spake crudely of women, his followers insist he speaketh plainly, as real men do. Chauvinicus 4:3.
Or is it in the redactions of all the files? Who knows? Let me know. God bless.
Ah, yes, the redactions. Some verses are written, some are hidden, and some are redacted for the sake of faith. God bless.
If you have kids, you should not let any MAGA supporters near your children, especially not leave them alone with your children. And I don't care if those people are part of your family. I don't care if they're your best friends. I don't care if you've known them for 50 years. The fact of the matter is that everyone who supports Donald Trump right now is supporting pedophiles. Every single person who still supports Donald Trump is openly supporting pedophiles. They may not be pedophiles themselves, but you can be guaranteed that if something happens to your child while they're in the presence of these people, they're going to blame your child. They're going to say things like, well, your kid shouldn't have been dressed that way, or, he's a real close family member, so we can't ruin his reputation, and blah, blah, blah. These are the kinds of excuses that people who support Donald Trump are going to make for pedophiles if they harm your children. So if you have children and you care about them at all, do not let any Trump supporters anywhere near your children.
The fact that we are seeing the downfall of MAGA is by far the most beautiful thing I am starting to see. Y'all peep these sheet. So, at a wrestling event, I think it's called AEW. Yeah, AEW to be exact. AEW, right before two wrestlers was about to begin their match, out of nowhere, the crowd started cheering, "Fuck ICE. Fuck ICE." And then on top of that shit, I don't know if this was like the mayor or something like that, but I know he was from Philadelphia for sure. And he's talking about ICE needs to be hunted down, much like how it took hundreds of years or 50-something odd years for Nazis and shit like that to be hunted down. Now they about to start doing that with ICE. So with that being said, if you are a part of ICE, yeah, you're fucked. You're fucked. There is no ifs, there is no ands, there is no buts about it. You are fucked. And the fact that I am seeing the downfall of MAGA, what a beautiful time to be alive.
Holy shit, get ready for this one. Because if you've ever heard somebody say immigrants are a drain on the system, or they're taking resources that should go toward Americans, and you knew they were full of shit, but you didn't have the facts to refute, I have great news, because after watching this video, not only will you know how to respond, but you'll have a counterpunch too, and they'll never see it coming. So first, a brand new study was just released from the Cato Institute. If you've never heard of them, it's a libertarian think tank, and they're typically cited by the Reagan-type Republicans when they want to cut spending. This specific study sought to evaluate the impact of immigrants on government spending. To do this, they looked at data from 1994 to 2023. 1993. 94 was the first year they started collecting it. So this data spans 30 years and it does include undocumented immigrants. Now, there are way too many findings in the study to capture them all in one video. I'm going to give you the high-level summary. First and most important takeaway is that the existence of immigrants reduced the deficit every single year over those 30 years. A 30-year streak of paying more in taxes than they cost the government at the local, state, and federal level combined. This is because while immigrants are paid lower wages on average, they work at much higher rates. Over this time period, immigrants only made up about 14% of the US population, but they made up over 18% of the workforce. Meanwhile, because immigrants are 25 years old when they arrive on average, it costs us next to nothing in terms of public education. Then because they're far less likely to work government jobs, they're less likely to be eligible for a public pension. And while immigrants in the United States are more likely to be living in poverty, they are no more likely than a US citizen to need government support. And that includes food stamps, Medicaid, tax credits, and unemployment insurance. And despite Trump's lies, they're also half as likely as a US-born citizen to have a felony or serve time in prison. So they're saving us money there too. You add this all together, it turns out over that 30-year period, immigrants contributed 14% of tax revenue and only accounted for 7% of government spending, contributing a net positive impact of $14.5 trillion to the US economy, with $6.3 trillion of that positive impact from non-citizens alone. That $14.5 trillion is so massive that without immigrants, in 2023, our national debt would have been double what it was. These numbers are so insane, I was required to ask a follow-up question. If immigrants are so good for our economy, are they better than Republicans? You won't believe what I found. Because in that exact same 30-year period, Republican presidents were in charge of 12. And in those fiscal years, Republican presidents accounted for $11.2 trillion of new debt, running annual deficits almost double on average the Democratic presidents in that same 30-year period, by the way. And with virtually all of that debt spending going to Wall Street, tax cuts for the wealthy, military spending, and forgivable loans to business owners through 2020 and 2021, we can safely confirm that next to none of that debt went to those same immigrants who were driving a positive impact. Altogether proving that not only do immigrants have a net positive impact on the economy, they're more important to our economy than Republicans.
I am ready to declare that it is going to end and MAGA will die with Donald Trump's presidency ending January 20th of 2029 or sooner if it happens to end sooner for any reason. Now, I am not making this prediction because the anger of MAGA is going to disappear. I am not making this prediction because Republicans are suddenly going to reform themselves when Trump is finally gone. I'm saying this because MAGA as a movement, I don't believe can exist without the one person that it is built around. And it is becoming increasingly clear, including as we hear from Trump supporters, that they don't really want J.D. Vance to be the nominee in 2028. I don't think that they are going to be able to pull it off. Now, let me give you some of the context. And a lot of this stuff, we've kind of been talking about this for a decade. MAGA is not really an ideology. MAGA isn't conservatism. It contains elements of nationalism, but fundamentally it isn't nationalism. A lot of the stuff that Trump does is actually much better for other countries than the United States. It uses populist rhetoric, but it's not really populism in any coherent sense. As soon as Trump got into power, all of the lip service paid to the populist rhetoric went out the window or down the toilet, and Trump did what was best for big corporations and his rich friends and dictators in other countries. And there's no really stable set of beliefs that would survive disagreement if MAGA really starts arguing about it. There's really only one rule to MAGA: loyalty to Donald Trump. Whatever Trump says today becomes the position of MAGA. And if he says something different tomorrow, then it's a different thing that MAGA believes. Tariffs are good until they're bad. Vaccines are great when Trump wants credit for developing them, but then all of a sudden they are woke poison that RFK Jr. is going to say, definitely don't give to your kids. An institution is corrupt until it starts serving Trump, and then it's great. Think FBI, Federal Reserve, whatever. That is not a political philosophy. That is personal allegiance to Donald Trump. Personal allegiance to Trump can't survive Trump by definition. Every attempt to start orienting the ship towards a successor so far is proving the point. You have people that try to copy the style or the insults or the grievances of Trump. And it really doesn't catch on because Trump voters don't want someone to sound like Trump. They want Trump. They don't follow Trump because he reflects their views. They adopt Trump's views because he dominates the space and they do whatever he says. And that is a kind of, I guess you could call it like authority that you can't inherit from Trump. Trump can't transfer that loyalty and authority. I believe it disappears when Trump disappears.
Jeffrey Epstein was supposedly killed. That's on an FBI form. That's not somebody calling in an anonymous tip or writing it on some deep, dark place in the internet. That's an actual FBI file stating what happened. And people are going to have to completely take in what they are seeing with their own eyes, what they're reading, and what they're being told. The reality is the Trump administration is not releasing the information. And I got yelled at by the president over this. This is why he called me a traitor. He called me a traitor because I would not take my name off the discharge petition, because I stood firmly and said, no, we're going to release the Epstein files. I'm standing with women who were raped as teenagers. I'm not standing with the government. I don't support the cover up of all of this stuff, whatever it may be. And the president got mad at me, and he's told me, and I've said this multiple times, he told me his friends would get hurt. And that's what he told me. And then we're seeing a continued slow walk and cover up of a lot of this information. And I know that is why. I firmly believe that that's why it is being covered up. Look, Pam Bondi works directly for Donald Trump. She is not out there an independent attorney general. She can't just run out and do whatever she wants. She works at the pleasure and approval of the President of the United States. Everybody in the administration does. So does the FBI. They're under the very same pleasure and approval of the President of the United States. So when everyone's getting mad at Pam Bondi, or you can name anybody you want. The man at the top is Donald Trump. He's the president. And he's the one that was completely against releasing the files when we started fighting to get them released. He's the one that called it a Democrat hoax. He's the one that, he invites everybody to the White House, but he will not invite these women that have defended him, by the way. They have defended him and said Donald Trump did nothing wrong. They have defended him, yet he doesn't bring them in the White House and support them. But what you're seeing is, if it looks like a duck, and if it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck.
It's Joe from Georgia. So the Australian election results are in. Now, the current Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was re-elected, and he beat Peter Dutton, who was called the Australian Trump. Mr. Dutton ran a campaign pretty much like Trump did. And he also said he was going to cut 40,000 public employees in Australia. He even had his party put in a shadow minister for efficiency. Does that sound familiar? Like maybe Doge? Well, the person was seen that he appointed as the minister for this efficiency group, and they were wearing a MAGA hat. So basically saying, make Australia great again. So it didn't work out too well for Peter Dutton. Not only did he not become Prime Minister, he lost the seat he held for 24 years in Australia. Congratulations to...
Welcome back. After actually watching the clips that we inserted here, it's time for us to do a proper analysis about all the videos that were here. So I don't know if you have noticed something, because when it comes to American politics, there are so many things that are happening at the same time, and it looks like MAGA is in trouble, guys. For a very long time, they seemed to be very strong. Now, at the moment, it looks like they are falling apart. So, my good people, yesterday we talked about some MAGA reps joining Democrats, voting against Trump's tariffs. Today we are talking about something else to do with MAGA still, and I've been looking at what people are saying in these online streets, and it seems like MAGA is cracking, and I want us to understand why. So there's been a lot of pretense that everything is okay, and I want us to talk about how things feel in the ground. Because on one side, some MAGA supporters are acting like everything is doing well and everything is normal. because they are talking about family, church, and sports. They want to seem like they are calm and steady, like nothing is troubling them. But if you look in the online spaces, in the social media platforms, the internet tells a very different story. Most people are not talking about winning anymore. They are actually talking about disasters, distress, and MAGA looks messy and confused, even if some people try to hide it. And of course, the math doesn't add up because for so many years, MAGA has been using very simple slogans to explain money and jobs. And most of the time, you would have noticed that they actually blamed people from other countries for money problems in America. But as we speak, they are being proved wrong. So there's been so many clips, posts here and there showing that these simple slogans are not true. These posters show that the math doesn't make sense at all. And of course, people are starting to see that the groups, the MAGA's money plans are weak. And there is a very big problem, by the way. And the problem is that MAGA is not really about ideas, it's just about following a leader. And of course, if you look at analysts in these spaces, in the online media spaces, they are saying that based on the fact that MAGA support is all about following one person, then it makes MAGA look really weak, because if a president looks bad, then the entire group is going to look bad. So many people who loved politics, they tend to be not following these political shenanigans. They actually don't want to be in a position whereby they are supposed to worship one person. So what has been happening now is that people have been turning against each other, which is sad. And the most shocking part is that there's been attacks here in the social media platforms, and of course they're not awesome, they're not good, because they're coming from these MAGA supporters. Some people who used to support the president are now against him. And if you have noticed, the clips that we just played, they are actually saying that there is so much secrets and cover-ups in this particular, group, because it doesn't make sense that, when your own friends are telling on there is a very big problem. So I don't know if you've noticed that this type of politics is not working in other countries. It's only working in America. You will see other political candidates in other places trying to copy here and there, but they lose terribly. And my good people, if you look at the whole situation that is happening, you could see there is an infighting, and of course it's going to really cost them. Thank you guys. If you watched our clip up to this point, I appreciate your presence. I'll see you in the next video.